Approach it is to say, well, what's going on around you? What are our national responsibilities? You cough a bit as well. And together with the team, put our best foot forward. And I think as Treasury and as the Ministers' Committee on the Budget and as Cabinet, we've done the best we can under the circumstances, which is to recognize that we're not growing well enough as an economy. We need to do better as an economy, that our singular focus as business, as labor, as government and as civil society is how to get inclusive growth dynamized in this country. Because if we don't, then the fiscal and revenue side doesn't work.
Yeah.
Right? So if you grow, you get more revenue. If you get more revenue, excuse me, if you get more revenue, then you have more money to spend. So I think what we're trying to explain to South Africans is that whilst this is a difficult period we're going through, it's not the worst. There's hope.
Yep.
There are things we can do, but it's up to us as to whether we do it as a team.
Yep.
Right? And the key is for the next year or two, we've got to squeeze ourselves. So there'll be slightly lower expenditure. There's going to be higher taxes next year. We don't know which ones yet. But above all, there's a lot of money in the system that we must make sure is used in an efficient way, but is used in order to meet people's needs.
Well, many people are asking for some of that money, Minister. And half an hour before you walked in there, you took a stroll, met with a noisy bunch of students, if I can put it politely. What was the purpose of meeting them just before this budget?
No, I didn't meet them. They requested that they would like us to receive a petition out of respect for the students. The Deputy Minister and I decided we will do that.
Yep.
Secondly, that's an important issue in our society. Not necessarily what happened here today, but the issue of education, the higher education, but also the education system as a whole, from early learning right up to university. And thirdly, we wanted to communicate, which is true, that we are not unappreciative, or put it the other way, we understand the difficulties both students and families are going through. Number two, we are developing a plan. Number three, the key pinch points is what Minister Nzimande and others have been attending to. Number four, we have lots of proposals, technical proposals that we want to evaluate as well. And number five, we have found money now and we will find more money, but we must be clear that there's a limit, because there are lots of, as you said, there are lots of other demands as well. But I believe that if we combine government's resources with external resources, those who are in actual need, those who are from poor families, can have their needs met. But we also emphasize the violence must stop. There's no need for violence. 2016 as an academic year must be completed. Students must write their exams, however the Vice Chancellors choose they want to do that, but that year must be completed, otherwise this will be a disaster for the economy.
Minister, can you take us through some clarity on the issue of Eskom? I mean, you tell us that Eskom will take ownership of the nuclear power initiative. You've been saying that anything nuclear-wise needs to meet affordability targets.
Still does.
Are you confident that you can pass that theme over once Eskom takes ownership of this?
I don't think we will see this in slices. So what we've got to do is to say, what does the new integrated resource plan look like?
Yep.
Where does the energy mix sit? What part will nuclear or gas or whatever else play in it? What then is the transparent procurement process? It must be in terms of the Constitution. Then look at what we can afford to do, and when. Eskom is not the real issue. The real issue is how do you fit all of these equations in. Eskom does run a nuclear power station in Koeberg, so they have some capability at the operating level. But they haven't done a very good job in delivering Medupi, for example. It's taken far too long and has become far too costly. So government will have to take those things into account as well. So I think give government a little bit of time to package all of this together. But what must be clear, the procurement process must be transparent, and the costing, whoever says whatever, at the end of the day there's one government with one fiscus with one responsibility. And everything has to fit within that. And that is part of the discussion that we will have within government, and convince the public that we have a convincible case. But as you know, there's lots of debates around this issue, and there's some way to go, both on the procurement side and on the costing side.
You want to bring in 28 billion rand in tax next year. How are you going to get that?
That's what we said. That's the next piece of work we've got to do. But understand where we are. What we are saying is that we're not growing fast enough as an economy.
Yep.
You have to have what we call measured and balanced fiscal consolidation. It means control the amount of money you're borrowing. Control the amount of interest you're paying on your borrowing. Understand that the revenue is down. It's 23 billion rands down this year. It'll be another 30 odd billion down next year if we carry on as we are. And that is why our repeated focus on South Africa, get together. Put your best resources together. Put your heads together. Find a solution to the growth problem. And automatically, many of the other problems will begin over a 2 to 5 year period resolve themselves. That's our focus.
Minister, you've received a standing ovation when you walked into Parliament today. You've been receiving arguably a standing ovation outside Parliament in the few weeks as you lead up to that appearance in court next week. What do you digest in the next few days as you go there?
No, this is just for this week and the MTBPS, and I think it's everybody saying to government, you've done a good job in presenting us with this very balanced approach, in presenting us with hope, and that ultimately it's in our hands.
Yeah, but people are interested in knowing what your framework is like, your thought processes ahead of next week.
No, that's for next week to worry about. Right now, I had a job to do. I've done my job, and I think there's a lot of discussions about next week in the media about whether it's justifiable or not and so on. Let's get over this responsibility, and then we'll tackle the injustices of next week.
My final question to you, Minister, are stakeholders buying your call for inclusivity and inclusive growth? You've been using and saying that mantra the entire year.
Yeah, no. I mean, for the top CEOs, 10 or 20 of them to meet every 2 weeks to work with government and Labour, and similarly from Labour leaders as well. A is a huge commitment, and B, it's laying the platform for what I'm calling a coming together of a national consensus on how we explore and exploit the opportunities that South Africa has so that people can lead a better life.